Now, I'm going to start this review out with a bit of non-spoiler talk in case you're someone maybe on the fence about whether or not you want to watch Skeleton Crew. Not that I should be the deciding factor for you, but I don't really try to hold to a narrative on this channel. I tell you what I like, I tell you what I don't like, and I give you the reasons why, and that's exactly what I'll be doing for Skeleton Crew. I went into this show hopeful for something enjoyable and good, but kind of keeping it real that Star Wars has fumbled a lot of their recent projects, and that this might just not be something for me, that this might appeal more to younger viewers than to adults. And I will mainly be reviewing it as, of course, an adult and how an adult might feel about it. You might have children and that might change how you feel about the show, because after the first episode in particular, this is certainly skewed more towards children, I'd say. Though also to people who maybe will have a bit of nostalgia for the shows or movies of the 80s. There was definitely a vibe, again, especially in the first episode, that harkens back to things like the Goonies, or maybe the Explorers, or the Flight of the Navigator, all those 80s classics some of us out there grew up with. Anyway, speaking of all those 80s classics, I would say my biggest issue thus far, or especially after the first episode again, was that this didn't really feel like Star Wars at all. Whereas, say, in A New Hope, when we first meet Luke Skywalker and we see kind of a normal, everyday average guy, or average kid really, growing up in an unfamiliar place, but having similar feeling problems to us about maybe his aunt and uncle not letting him go hang out with his friends. This kind of had the opposite feel, where we took everyday average Earth kids with very Earth-like problems and sprinkled a Star Wars seasoning over the top of it. It doesn't really feel like it happens in a galaxy far, far away. I mean, it feels like it happens here on Earth, and that it is trying to maybe have a little bit of a Star Wars vibe to it. Yes, there are things like droids and so on that make it feel a little Star Wars-like, but overall, this didn't really feel like something familiar in a very, very foreign setting. It felt like something that was in a familiar setting that tried to have a little bit of foreign mixed in. Hopefully that is making some sense. And the whole first episode really is just kids being kids and having kid problems before discovering something very exciting. Of course, they were going to find a ship. That is a minor spoiler, I suppose. But they find a ship and end up blasting off into space, and that's where the first episode ends. And overall, again, it just didn't feel very Star Wars-like to me. I'm not saying it was bad, and I'm also not saying it was good. It was just kind of, it was just kind of there. It was okay. Now, at the very beginning, there is an action scene that takes place away from the planet, which I actually thought was really good. I thought it kicked off really well. That felt like Star Wars. In fact, it felt so much like Star Wars that there were a few little things in there that really ripped off the first Star Wars movie, how it all begins even. But overall, that first episode was average and didn't really have me all that hooked. Now, the second episode was much better, but also much, much shorter. It was only about 25 minutes when you take out all the credits. And it too didn't exactly have the most Star Wars vibe I have ever felt out of anything. In fact, they're leaning maybe a little too heavily into the pirate theme. And yes, pirates are part of Star Wars. Thank you, Hondo and others. But it really felt more like a random space adventure than it did anything to do with Star Wars. Again, more piratey than Star Wars-y, if that makes sense. However, it was much, much better. And though I don't know that the characters have really stood out, I'm not saying the child actors are doing a poor job or anything like that. I'm just saying they're kind of cliche characters at this point. And though they haven't stood out, there is a mystery here that is actually pretty interesting. I dare say it's the one thing that's kind of sunk its hook in and has me interested to see more. Not so much where the characters are going. We can pretty much see how this will ultimately play out. The kids, of course, will one day get home and everything is going to be more or less okay for them. But there is a really curious mystery which I think we'll talk about now. So you may want to click away if you don't want any spoilers, because we're going all in on the spoilers now. Alright, so without question, the most interesting part of this entire series thus far, it's 2 episodes, so it could get a lot better, it could get worse. But it is what the heck is up with the planet that the kids are from. And right away in the first episode, we do get some hints and clues that things are a little different here. They talk about how they have to find their place or take a test to fit into their society, essentially that they will be assigned a role in society in the, I forget what they call it, the Great Work, I believe they called it. Sounds like some form of socialism or communism or something like that that seems to dictate the planet. And as we go on, it also seems they are not on the radar of the rest of the galaxy. That when they get to the pirate hangout at Aten is some sort of mystical treasure planet, I guess. Now we don't see any signs of what exactly that means or why that would be the case, other than they have been isolated from the rest of the galaxy. They have this barrier that they can't get through. But we really don't know what is up with the planet, and it is interesting. They have me hooked on what the heck is going on here, and that it has something to do with the Republic. And we, of course, assumed initially that they were talking about the current New Republic, the one that has just won the battle against the Empire and is trying to reform at this point in the Mandoverse, because this is set during the Mandoverse. But it seems like they're talking about further back. We don't know how much further back, but it is kind of implied that they don't know there has been the Empire, maybe? That there is some sort of, I don't know what, controlling the planet and keeping them in the dark. We have the barrier around the planet, which prevents starships from going in and going out, even though the one here just went out fine. So clearly there is something up with the planet, that the aliens or the pirates think that this is the lost planet of eternal treasure, as one said, and that they are Linderlings, whatever that might mean. I have a feeling that whatever the planet used to be, it has since changed. It could be that that ship crashed there 1,000 years ago. It's interesting to note that SM-33 didn't know that it was at Aten, so he has not heard whatever these legends are that the other pirates have. Could be that this ship going there is what started the legends. It crashed there and somehow reported back that there is all this treasure, and that is the last anyone ever heard from it. Shortly thereafter, they put up the barrier and have been lost to everybody else since, including to the Republic. That is why they have all these old Republic credits that are in pristine condition, because that has been the currency they have been using ever since. Again, they didn't know about the Empire. They didn't convert their credits over or anything like that because, well, the Empire never even knew where they were. It's also interesting to note that the kids were playing with action figures at one point, and they had a Jedi versus Sith. It seemed like a green lightsaber versus a red one. So it could be that the last thing they knew, the Jedi and Sith were still fighting each other in a war and missed the whole 1,000 years of peace before the Sith returned and all of that. Again, the mystery of the planet has me intrigued, if nothing else has really hooked me quite yet. Like I said, the characters are fine. The kids are doing a fine job. I just feel like they're kind of cliche characters at this point, and we know the trajectory of their story. But it could still be a fun ride. The second episode was certainly a lot more fun and interesting than the first one was. I thought the action scenes were pretty decent. I don't know that the music or the score has really stood out at all yet, but it looks fairly good too. It doesn't look really cheap. I mean, the suburbia is a little jarring in the first episode. It feels straight out of, well, not straight out of Earth. It has, it's aliened up a little bit, but it does feel like something you would see here in the United States in any given suburb, which is very strange, though if this planet has been cut off from the rest of the galaxy for potentially 1,000 years or more, who knows, that could explain why it has become kind of Earth-like. It has evolved or progressed all on its own, much like we here on Earth have, and this is just kind of the natural order of things when a planet is left to evolve or progress all on its own. I don't know. I'll take that as an excuse as to why it looks like suburbia. There were Easter eggs littered everywhere in this, including right out of the holiday special. The little acrobat performance out of the holiday special was in here. We had the little creature from Captain EO. There were a bunch of little nods here and there, which are fine. They're neither good nor bad in my opinion. The holiday special one is maybe particularly interesting because that is kind of a taboo or forsaken territory, according to George Lucas. He wishes he could destroy every copy of that exists, so I'm sure if he's watching that, he was less than thrilled to see it. But anyway, to sum up my overall thoughts here, I may do a full deep dive into this one. I don't know if I'm going to do that yet or not, kind of like I did with The Acolyte, where I gave my initial review, and then the next day I kind of just broke it all down. I don't know if there's really that much here to break down, but we'll see. But my overall thoughts right now, how I'm feeling about this is fingers crossed that something materializes out of a decent start It is very fun. It is very kid-centric. This is for younger viewers for sure, so I'm not going to judge it too harshly. Though I do think for younger viewers or not, it should be quality. Just because something is made for kids doesn't mean we should expect less than the best they can give us. And this is still Star Wars, right? This should be a quality program. It should just sell itself. I think the part I find most frustrating is that it is leaning so much into other things that it doesn't feel, again, like Star Wars. It's trying so hard to be other things when Star Wars in and of itself should be enough to sell the show and enough to bring in viewers, even younger viewers. But yeah, the first episode was a bit slow, a bit uneventful, and a bit predictable, and a bit contrived. Certainly a series of events happened that just magically they all ended up in space, and he pressed the button, they found the hatch in the side of a hill, and then he told her about it at the school principal's office, basically, and she still just was able to find it out in the woods, and then the dad was able to find it easily enough, and yeah, a series of interesting coincidences led them to this adventure, but I can, I suppose, overlook that. I am curious to see where this goes. I'm trying to be hopeful, even if it wasn't the best thing I have ever seen. Well, I think that's going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below and tell me what your initial reaction or response was to this. Are you enjoying it? Are you not enjoying it? Are you hopeful? Or are you already ready to check out? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.